Ayşegül, VRG.
Evet, tamam. Yukarıya.
Evet, yukarı.
Merhaba, nasılsınız? Hoş geldin Faruk, hoş geldin. Merhaba, öpmüyorum çünkü biraz çok parlak hissetmiyorum. Uygulamaları var. When did you arrive? You arrived yesterday?
We arrived Friday night.
Friday. Oh, that's okay.
They had a city tour.
We
So
were,
the jet lag is gone.
the jet lag is gone.
Then you have so much
Yes. Saturday was beautiful. One fabulous day. Yeah. But we had a lovely
It's
lunch.
okay because otherwise our guests have not come. We know some of them are still on the road trying
Of
to
course,
reach
yeah.
here.
No,
Did
that's
you have
fine.
any coffee or anything?
I had a cup of tea. Thank you very
I
much.
would like to offer you this book. It is the World Innovation Summit for Education, best practice around the world,
Beautiful.
radical innovation in education for world.
Broad, bravo,
I'm
beautiful.
very
After the
Yes.
seminar,
With the
and
journalists.
with the journalists, I wish, Mohammed, that you mentioned it and you have the book. You have another one?
This is for you.
I can give you for the lunch and take it back.
And I thank you so much for arranging a TV interview.
The Human Rights Day in the world, 10th of December. Am I right, Zerrin?
Yes, you are right. Yeah.
Human Rights Day.
Thank you.
Oh, that?
Olur inşallah.
Çıkınca ben öyle çıkarmam.
İnşallah. Evet. Hoş geldiniz.
Babacığına da destek veriyorsunuz. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Sabancı Vakfı Mütevelli Heyeti Başkanı Sayın Güler Sabancı, üçüncü sektörün değerli temsilcileri, saygıdeğer konuklar, basınımızın değerli mensupları, geleneksel hale gelen Sabancı Vakfı Filantropi Seminerlerinin 6.sına hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Bu yılki başlığımız eğitim için hayırseverlik, yeni çözümler. Kamu özel sektör işbirliği ve hayırseverlikteki yenilikçi yaklaşımlarla eğitim kalitesinin nasıl artırılabileceğine dair düşünce ve deneyimlerini bizlerle paylaşacak olan çok özel, çok değerli iki konuğumuz var bugün. Irene Pritzker ve Muhammed Abbad Andalusi. Kendilerine tekrar hoş geldiniz diyorum. Ben Sabancı Üniversitesi Diller Okulu'ndan Deniz Kurtoğlu Eken, bugünkü seminerimizin moderatörlüğünü yürüteceğim. Programımıza başlamadan önce akış hakkında sizlere kısaca bilgi vermek istiyorum. Sabancı Vakfı Mütevelli Heyeti Başkanı Sayın Güler Sabancı'nın açılış konuşmasının ardından konuşmacılarımızı size takdim edeceğim. Kendileri yaklaşık 20'şer dakikalık birer sunuş yapacaklar. Sonrasında kısa bir ara vereceğiz. Aradan sonra Irene ve Muhammed ile bir söyleşimiz olacak. Daha sonra ise soru-cevap bölümüne geçeceğiz. Şimdi seminerimizin açılış konuşmasını yapmak üzere Sabancı Vakfı Mütevelli Heyeti Başkanı Sayın Güler Sabancı'yı kürsüye davet ediyorum.
Günaydın efendim. Evet, çok yağmurlu, çok trafikli bir pazartesi sabahı. Hep beraber olmaktan büyük mutluluk duyuyoruz. Sabancı Center'a değerli vakıf üyeleri, değerli sivil toplum kuruluşlarının temsilcileri ve değerli konuşmacılar, değerli basın mensupları, hepinize hoş geldiniz diyorum. Sabancı Vakfı'nın 6.sını düzenliyoruz. Filantropi semineri, hayırseverlik semineri. Evet, yine 10 Aralık'ta bir aradayız. 10 Aralık'ta olmasına özen gösteriyoruz. Dünya İnsan Hakları Günü'nde yapmaya çalışıyoruz. Hayırseverlik insana dair bir olgu çünkü. Evet, önce bireye, sonra topluma değer katmak amacımız. İnsan olmak da insanla ilgili hiçbir şeye kayıtsız kalmamaktır aslında. İnsan haklarının özü de, gözü de işte aslında budur. Biz Sabancı Vakfı olarak insana dair uygulamalar odağında çalışmalar yürüten dünyadaki filantropi sektörünün yakından takip etmeye çalışıyoruz. Yeni konuları, yeni yaklaşımları seminerlerimizde sizlerle ve hep beraber paylaşmak, ufkumuzu açmaya niyetliyiz. Umuyorum hepimiz için katılımcı ve iyi bir toplantı olur bugün. Bu yılda seminerimizde insan haklarının en temeli olan eğitimi konuşacağız. Eğitim konusu geçmişten bugüne Türkiye'de hem vakıfların hem de sivil toplum kuruluşlarının temel çalışma alanlarından birisi olmuştur. Çünkü toplumsal gelişme bireyin gelişimiyle olur. Bu da ancak eğitimle mümkündür. Geçmişe baktığımızda okullar yaparak, gençlere burslar, ödüller vererek topluma katkıda bulunmayı hedefleyen bir hayırseverlik anlayışı vardı. Ki bu hala günümüzde de geçerlidir ve ihtiyaçtır. Ancak bunun yanında günümüzde yeni yaklaşımlar da gelişmektedir. Eğitim konusunu farklı açılardan ele almamız, yeni örnekler yaratmamız gerekmektedir. Eğitim hakkı sadece eğitime erişimle sınırlı değildir. Kaliteyi ve içeriği erişimden ayrı tutamayız. Bunun yanı sıra eğitime erişimde fırsat eşitliğini de her zaman göz önünde bulundurmalıyız. Erkek çocukları gibi kız çocuklarının da engellilerin de tam fırsat eşitliği çerçevesinde eğitimine katılmasını sürekli desteklemeliyiz. Bugün eğitim konusunda farklı bakış açılarıyla yaptıkları çalışmalarla iki değerli uzman aramızda bulunuyorlar. Birazdan kendilerinden ülkelerinde ve diğer ülkelerdeki uygulamaları, modeller ve aldıkları sonuçlar konusunda faydalı bilgiler paylaşacağız. Ayrıca yaptıkları çalışmalarda çok sektörlü yapının, yani özel sektör, sivil toplum, devlet, vakıf işbirliğinin olumlu etkilerini de hep beraber dinleyeceğiz. Değerli konuşmacılarımız Irene Pritzker ve Muhammed Abbad Andolisi aramızda oldukları için kendilerine bir kez daha davetimizi kabul edip geldikleri için sizler adına ve Sabancı Vakfı adına çok teşekkür ediyorum. Değerli misafirler, değerli hayırseverler, eğitime yatırım toplumsal gelişmeye yapılan en önemli yatırımlardan birisi. Bunu hepimiz biliyoruz. Biz de Sabancı Vakfı olarak ülkemize 120'ye yakın kalıcı eser ve 81 tanesi bunların doğrudan eğitimle ilgilidir. Birçok eser kazandırmaya çalıştık. Sabancı Üniversitesi, okullar, kütüphaneler, öğrenci yurtları ve öğretmen evleri gibi. Biraz önce değindiğim gibi eğitimin içeriği çok önemli. Biz de kalıcı eserlerimizde buna özen göstermeye çalıştık. Sabancı Üniversitesi interdisipliner yapısıyla Türkiye'deki yüksek öğrenim sistemine yenilikçi bakış açıları kazandırdı. Açıkçası yaptığımız her işte biraz farklı, yeni bakış açılarını kazandırmaya çalışıyoruz. Yine burada Sayın Hocam Üstün Ergüder de bizimle beraber Sabancı Üniversitesi bünyesinde kurulan eğitim reformu girişimi, eğitim politikalarını katılımcı diğer vakıfların da katkılarıyla üreten bir organ. Bu da Türkiye'de bir ilktir. Sadece okul yapmak, yurt yapmak değil, fikri katkıda bulunmak, politikalara katkıda bulunmak, yön göstermek. Evet, bunları yapmaya çalışıyoruz. Yine geçen sene Eskişehir'de bir uzay evi açılışını gerçekleştirdik. Oradaki gençler bundan faydalansınlar diye. Açıldığından beri gerek İstanbul'daki Sakıp Sabancı Müzesi'nde, gerekse Mardin Sakıp Sabancı Müzesi'nde sanat eğitimleri ve müzecilikle ilgili eğitimler veriyoruz. Yaptığımız her işin yanında onunla ilgili eğitimine özen göstermeye çalışıyoruz. Arkadaşlarım bu bilinçle çalışıyorlar. Bugüne kadar 37 binin üzerinde üniversite öğrencisine burs verdik. 1000'i aşkın ödüle gençlerimizle başarılarını teşvik ettik. Son senelerde belki takip etmişsinizdir, hibe programlarımızda yaşam boyu eğitim sürecini destekliyoruz. Hibe desteği verdiğimiz sivil toplum kuruluşlarının çok önemli eğitim çabaları var. Engelli hakları eğitimi, toplumsal cinsiyet eğitimi, mor sertifika eğitimleri gibi birçok programların destek eğitimlerini yapıyoruz. Tüm bu çabalar sadece bizde yok. Türkiye'de görüyorum ki, sevindirici olarak görüyorum ki, sivil toplum örgütlerinde, bugün burada birçok temsilcisi bulunan vakıflarda çok ciddi çalışmalar yapılıyor. Bu zaten hep beraber yapacağımız bir olay. Tek başımıza yapamayacağımız ama hep beraber olursak da çok büyük farklar yaratacağımız bir konu. Bu çalışmalar göz önünde bulundurulurken sık sık ne kadar para harcandığı soruluyor. Biz Sabancı'da açıkçası bunu çok konuşmayı sevmiyoruz. Biz yaptığımız işlerin sonucuna bakılmasını, kimlere dokunduğumuzu, nasıl fark yarattığımızı ölçmeye çalışıyoruz. Ama kabaca bugüne kadar sadece eğitim kanalında 2 milyar Türk lirasına yakın bir yatırım yapmışız. Yaptığımız işleri ve ortaklıklarla toplumsal gelişmeyi sağlayacağımızı biliyoruz. Bunu göz ardı etmemeliyiz. Biraz önce de söylediğim gibi birlikte çalışmaktan, birlikte güç yaratmaktan her zaman faydalı olduğunu görüyoruz. Bugünkü konuşmacılardan, seminerlerden de zaten hep bunu izliyoruz. Ki dünyadaki başarılı örneklerin tek başına yapılmadığını görüyoruz. Bir kez daha Sabancı Center'a böyle yağmurlu ve zor bir günde ama insanlık için, insanlara dokunmak için ve hayırseverlik için önemli bir günde beraber olduğumuz için, katıldığınız için hepinize çok teşekkür ediyorum ve bugünkü seminerin ve katılımcıların bizlere yeni ufuklar açmasını bekliyorum. Çok teşekkürler. Hepimize hayırlı olsun.
Çok teşekkür ederiz Sayın Güler Sabancı. Şimdi de değerli konuşmacılarımızı size takdim etmek istiyorum. Irene Pritzker, İnovasyon, Kalkınma, İlerleme Vakfı'nın kurucu üyesi ve başkanıdır. Dünyadaki en büyük sorunların bile eğitimle çözüleceğine inanan Pritzker, eğitime eşit katılım için yatırım araçları ile hayırseverliği ortak bir zeminde buluşturmaktadır. Bu inovatif bakış açısıyla hem yeni umutlar, fırsatlar yeşereceğini hem de olumlu ekonomik sonuçlar elde edilebileceğini savunmaktadır. Irene'in başkanı olduğu IDP Vakfı'nın bu bakış açısıyla hayata geçirdiği bir mikrofinans girişimi olan Okul Kalkındırma Programı, Gana'daki düşük ücretli özel okulların gelişmesini ve eğitim kalitesinin artırılmasını hedeflemektedir. Irene Pritzker, Okul Kalkındırma Programı'nı gelişmekte olan diğer ülkelere de ulaştırmak istiyor. Dilerseniz Irene Pritzker'ı sahneye davet etmeden önce İnovasyon, Kalkınma, İlerleme Vakfı'nın çalışmaları hakkında kısa bir filmimiz var. Hep birlikte onu izleyelim.
If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. It's a popular saying in this country. Now, what it means is that a society, an uneducated society, has no future.
In Ghana, as in most sub-Saharan Africa, the challenge of getting a quality education is often elusive. Despite millions of dollars in international aid, public schools are severely overcrowded and disorganized. For this reason, many parents are turning to a unique private sector alternative, delivering high-quality, low-cost education to their children. But why would so many parents living on less than $2 a day choose to spend an average of $51 per year on private school tuition when public schools in Ghana are free?
The private schools, if somebody owns it, somebody takes care of it. The public school, some of the teachers, you go to the classrooms, you find them asleep. In some of the classrooms, you don't even find the teacher there. With a private school, they believe that this is our school. We have to put in our best so that the children can get what is required of them.
Despite the benefits of affordable private education for the poor, the challenges are enormous. These schools are chronically underfunded, disenfranchised, and lack even the most basic infrastructure. Almost all of the teachers are untrained.
These are schools located in very deprived communities. In most cases, they don't have access to electricity. In most cases, they probably have the land, but then it's not developed because they don't have the finances to develop the land, to put up the right structures for the children.
The IDP Rising Schools program is providing extremely poor private schools with an inextricably linked bundle of services that holistically addresses the sustainability and quality of the schools. Specific microfinance loan products were created to address infrastructure development, vehicle acquisition, and working capital needs. These loans are linked to 12 comprehensive capacity building trainings for the proprietors in financial literacy and school management. The income generated on the loan portfolio pays for the trainings, which in turn affects the repayment rate of the loans. This holistic approach distinguishes the IDP Rising Schools program from traditional approaches to education.
We hope to accomplish quality education for rural and deprived children going forward in the next 5 years, touching down to about 1 million children having quality education.
To achieve this immense task, the IDP Foundation has formed a strategic alliance with Opportunity International, bringing its nearly 40 years of experience in microfinance to help guide the program to success. This work is implemented by Sanapi Aba Trust, a Ghanaian microfinance institution with over 48 branches throughout the country. The Ministry of Education has endorsed the program as an effective model for raising the standards of underprivileged schools. To enhance the skills of untrained teachers, the IDP Rising Schools program has partnered with Sesame Workshop to develop 10 training videos that show teachers how to incorporate creative child-centered pedagogy and classroom management in their daily lessons. By leveraging the strengths of this unique partnership, the IDP Rising Schools program is working to uplift private schools, expanding the opportunities of quality education for the children of Ghana.
Education is important to me. For that, nobody can take it from you. And if you educate a child or a girl, that means you have educated the whole nation.
Bir çocuğu eğitirseniz tüm ulusu eğitirsiniz diye bitiyor video. Daha kendisini dinlemedik ama şimdiden hepimiz beklenti içerisindeyiz biliyorum. Irene Pritzker'ı sahneye davet etmek istiyorum. Irene. Bugünkü diğer konuğumuz Muhammed Abbad Andalusi. Sayın Andalusi, Arapçada köprü anlamına gelen Al-Cizr'in kurucusudur. Al-Cizr, eğitim kalitesini artırabilmek için özel sektörü harekete geçirerek şirketlerin okullara maddi ve teknik açıdan katkıda bulunmalarını amaçlamaktadır. Şimdiye kadar yüzlerce okula destek vermiş olan Al-Cizr, 2015 yılına kadar bu sayıyı 500'e çıkarmayı hedefliyor. Andalusi aynı zamanda okuldan ayrılan çocukların eğitim hayatına yeniden kavuşması amacıyla çalışmalar yürüten Al-İkram'ın da kurucu ortağıdır. Andalusi, Al-İkram'da bir yandan yüzlerce çocuğun yeniden okula dönmesini sağlarken, bir yandan da gençlerin girişimci ruhunu ortaya çıkarmak için çalışmalar yapmaktadır. Yakın zamanda Al-Cizr, Learning a Living, hayatını kazanmayı öğrenmek başlığı altında dünyadaki 15 en iyi ve yenilikçi örnek arasında yer aldı. Muhammed Abbad Andalusi'yi sahneye davet etmeden önce çalışmaları ile ilgili kısa filmimizi birlikte izlemeye davet ediyorum sizleri.
Welcome back to the programme. I'm Nima Abouarte. Now, like many parts of the Middle East and North Africa, Morocco has a high youth unemployment rate. Over a quarter of its young people are out of work. Now, while some blame the government, employers tend to point the finger at the country's education system, saying that the people who've been through it are unemployable. So, are better links between companies and schools the answer? Well, Simon Atkinson went to the capital, Rabat, to find out.
You don't have to be an expert in Moroccan politics to know these people want to be seen and heard. On the streets of Rabat, protests like this are a daily occurrence. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of people gather, and there's one thing they all want in common, and that's jobs. But some do more than chanting. Last month, a 27-year-old graduate died after setting himself on fire at a similar protest. So what's going wrong in a country that spends a quarter of its entire government budget on education? But might this be a way to get round that disaster? These students aren't in their college, but a bank headquarters. And this isn't a teacher, but a bank employee who's been helping the students learn about the realities of business and how to start a firm.
I've really seen the impact with my own eyes. In the first day of class, students were very shy and they can barely speak or barely define what a company is. And then the last day, I was the one who was sitting in the back, and they were leading the class, they were distributing their dividends, they ended up their project, and that was really the most rewarding part of the job.
It's a scheme designed by Mohammed Abbad Andalusi, a banker turned education champion. And his aim is to find ways of making students here more employable and entrepreneurial.
In my country, we need to develop small business. And we have offered a lot of incentives to youth to create their own business. And we failed. I am convinced that the reason is because youth have not been prepared to take a risk. They have not entrepreneurship spirit, and they prefer to be a civil servant, an employee, instead of to create their own business. And with our program, one student told me that he learned at least one thing, that he will never be an employee.
These Casablancan students plan to continue a business they started in college, which gives a modern take on traditional Moroccan clothing. And they say the scheme's made a material difference to their outlook.
The problem is in the high school and in the primary school, we really don't learn something important about entrepreneurship and business. You know, even if I had economic training during my high school, it was all about accounting, you know, and learning this. It was theoretical. But I think in college, many things are changing thanks to these kinds of programs.
The changes might have come too late for these protesters, but the prospect of more job opportunities for young people seems well worth shouting about.
Now for something a little bit different. Qatar may be small, but it has significant financial clout, from bankrolling Libyan rebels to hosting the World Cup to education. It's just played host to a major summit looking at ways of improving education around the world. Stephanie Hancock has this report from the capital, Doha.
Qatar is spending millions of dollars on education, both here at home and overseas, and everyone agrees it's a noble cause. But the biggest challenge facing the Middle East is not a lack of education, it's a lack of jobs. Unemployment is a major threat to the stability of this region, and many people here say that education alone is simply not enough. The key is making education relevant. Here in the Arab world, 60% of the population is under 25. That means competition for jobs is fierce, so education in the Middle East must help young people actually become employable. That's what this project in Morocco, which won an award at Qatar's Education Summit, aims to do. This school is one of several thousand across Morocco, which is now sponsored by a local business. Staff regularly come to talk to students about work life, entrepreneurship and training.
Il faut très tôt expliquer aux enfants ce qu'on attend d'eux dans la vie professionnelle et dans ce qui les attendra dans 5-6 ans, quand ils auront terminé leurs études. Et c'est ce que nous recherchons à travers ces expériences, de donner envie aux élèves eh bien de créer leur propre entreprise, ou en tout cas de comprendre ce que c'est qu'une entreprise.
27% of Morocco's state budget is spent on education, so money isn't really the problem. The trick, says the man behind this award-winning scheme, is getting the private sector involved in schooling.
All Ministry of Education did their best to improve the quality of education, and they failed. So we need to open the school on its environment. Today, the school ignores the word of business, and the word of business overlook the word of education.
Yine son derece ilham verici bir çalışma. Muhammed Abbad Andalusi'yi sahneye davet etmek istiyorum. Please, Muhammed. Değerli konuklar, şimdi seminerimize İngilizce olarak devam edeceğiz. Well, welcome once again, dear Irene. Welcome, dear Mohammed. I'd like to echo Ms. Güler Sabancı's words and share with you once again that we're truly honored and feel very privileged to have both of you here. And we're looking forward to, we've seen in the videos already, but we're looking forward to hearing the insights and experiences that you will have, you will be sharing with us. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Irene to share with us her presentation.
Sumiskula Banshi, and thank you very much for this incredible honor to be here today and visit your beautiful city and to be a guest of the Sabanci Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I thank you for also your commitment and passion to education, which I believe is the most important way that we can see out of poverty. The IDP Foundation is relatively new. When it was formed in 2008, we really had absolutely no idea what we were going to do other than work in the area of poverty relief and education. But anyway, without knowing what we were doing, we called the IDP Foundation, which stands for Innovation, Development, and Progress. I was always interested in sustainable rather than aid-based programs. And this led me to a conference organized by Opportunity International, which was founded in 1971 and is a microfinance organization which operates in 24 countries. At this conference, I heard a speech by widely published Professor James Tooley. He is a professor of education in England. He pointed out in this speech that despite the billions of dollars dispensed to governments for education by the United Nations, multilateral funders, and corporations, there is still a universal explosion of low-cost, privately owned schools in deprived areas. This is a direct response to market demand from very poor and often illiterate parents who see education as the only way out of poverty and are frustrated with the inefficiencies and the lack of reach of government schools. This whole idea intrigued me so much that I decided to go to Ghana with Opportunity International to observe their loan program for schools. But when I got to Ghana, I discovered that the types of schools that Opportunity International was targeting were larger and much more prosperous than those about which Professor Tooley had spoken. And when I asked why, I was told that a regulated financial institution could not take such great credit risks. But I wanted to see the schools that James Tooley had talked about. So off I went into a giant slum market covering an enormous area in the heart of Accra. Here I met Paulina. She had a school serving 450 children from kindergarten just through grade 4. Her school was housed in the most disgusting, cramped conditions with no ventilation, no electricity, no sanitation, and no play space. Teachers were teaching out of grade inappropriate textbooks, trying to sort out how to adjust the material for the ages of the children in their class. The children had no books at all, trying to memorize material written on a very old blackboard. Yet, although she had been a successful loan client of Opportunity International for several years, and now with a very successful wholesale yam business, Paulina was unable to secure a loan to improve her school. And when I asked why these children were not in a free government school, she told me that the government school was very poorly managed, much too far away for children to walk to, and those that could walk that far had to cross a busy road where several children had been killed. Therefore, at the urging of parents, Paulina started a school. I found in that marketplace, just in one corner of it, 8 such schools. The fees that Paulina charged were just over the equivalent of $5 a term. And out of necessity, the school ran all year with no vacations because those parents were working 7 days a week just to eke out less than $2 a day. It was clear that this school was established in response to quite literally a very strong market demand. I learned that in Ghana, there were several thousand such schools, which bore out everything James Truly had said. So I went back to speak to the president of Opportunity International and tried to urge him to include these schools in their loan program. And this is when I learned that the most dangerous thing any aspiring philanthropist can ever say is, well, this is terrible and something should be done about it. And he just looked at me and he said, well, as an organization dedicated to helping the poor, we are most grateful to you and excited to see what you're going to do. So I wasn't exactly thrilled at this answer, but long story short, I went many times back and forth to Ghana, did a lot of on-the-ground market research, figured out what common problems these schools faced, talked to all kinds of multilateral funders, governments, and corporations, and this is what I learned. That the situation in Ghana, which is considered a rapidly growing and middle-of-the-spectrum developing country, still, by and large, is presenting a microcosmic picture of the same educational conditions that exist in developing countries worldwide. Thus, there are hundreds of thousands, more like millions, of these very low-cost, privately owned schools all over the entire developing world, serving hundreds of millions of poverty-stricken children. Parents choose these schools because they find they are either the same cost or only slightly more expensive than the so-called free government schools, which have many hidden costs. But these schools have the added value of being available when sometimes there are no government schools. They find that there is better governance in these schools because there's less bureaucracy, less teacher absenteeism, and that the class sizes are considerably smaller. Yet, these schools lack infrastructure, adequate teaching and learning materials, trained teachers, and very often electricity or sanitation of any kind. In our initial meetings with government officials, we were surprised to learn that they denied the existence of these schools, and they were very stubborn in their conviction that all private schools were profit-seeking and for the elite. It took a lot of photographs, site visits, bringing the government officials to see, a lot of relationship building to get them to back down and finally admit that they needed to consider this sector more responsibly. Our data shows that contrary to popular belief, these school proprietors hardly eke out a living, much less make any kind of profit. Oftentimes, schools are subsidized by proprietors finding other sources of income. We found that proprietors often extend multiple free scholarships to many families where there are several children, and most particularly to girls, whose education is the first to be sacrificed for poverty. So all this has dispelled the Ghanaian government's notion that these types of low-cost and deprived private schools are profiting at the expense of the poor. And that is a notion that is very pervasive throughout the world. There is always that stigma attached to anything called private. But now the government in Ghana has begun to rely on us to provide them with information about this sector. There's a great many more alarming characteristics of these schools, but the most amazing to me of all is that we have not been able to find a single person or any organization, aid agency, or corporation that has ever extended credit to such poor schools in any kind of organized way and tracked the results. So as a foundation, we decided to give it a try. And this is where, as a private foundation, we have been able to utilize our flexibility and unconstrained freedom to invest risk capital, to take a long, hard look at the low-cost private school sector and embark upon a very innovative experiment which most thankfully actually worked. We see this as investing in education with the possibility of having a wide impact. We see this as impact investing in education. So now that I've given you some background on what all this was about and how it got started, let me tell you about what has become known as the IDP Rising Schools program. It began as a pilot study with 105 schools which served 27,000 children. Our goal was to develop a sustainable, scalable model based on microfinance to empower existing private schools, these very poor schools. We never start a school, they're always existing, and these schools are serving the very bottom of the economic pyramid. It was important to us that the model be scalable and could be replicated in other developing countries. The idea was to close the gap that existed between government reach and the underserved, and to get the government to embrace them, to embrace these schools, thereby offering all children a chance to gain access to education. So how were we going to set about doing this? We hypothesized that if a course of financial literacy and school management training was delivered to these school owners, then it would be possible to provide them with a loan so that they could improve their schools, organize themselves into a network, and lobby their elected officials for inclusion. We argued that the model could be self-sustaining because the cost of the trainings could be factored into the loan terms. We also argued that if there was a high level of repayment, there would be a positive financial return on investment for the financial institution through loan interest, increased savings deposit from the community, as well as a good deal of social credit. We felt a successful model would encourage financial institutions in other countries to copy it, since it opened a new, reliable, and significant market. We divided the program into two distinct tracks, the financial services tract and a learning enhancement tract. So we started with the financial services tract in order to stabilize the schools. First, we established a strong partnership with a very profitable and very well-reputed Ghanaian microfinance non-government organization called Sinapi Abba Trust. You saw a little bit about them in the video. Sinapi Abba Trust was a perfect partner because it now has over 50 branches in deprived and rural areas in all 10 regions of a rather small country. Without a strong microfinance partner, we could never have brought this program to fruition. So based on our hypotheses, we created a program. Then we interviewed school proprietors, enrolled them, and tested their financial knowledge. The results showed us that indeed we had a big task ahead of us. During the training, we had the school proprietors attend 1 full day a week for 12 consecutive weeks, with compulsory attendance in certain modules, homework, and other assignments. In the morning, we taught them financial subjects. In the afternoon, we taught them school management. Points, much like airline mileage points, were awarded for certain achievements and compliance with the program rules. This resulted in a really healthy competition and a quickly excellent mastery of arithmetic. These points could be redeemed for rewards or improved loan terms. The courses were taught, and this is very important, the courses were taught by the same trained loan officers who would eventually be reviewing the loan applications. And with such high-risk loans, we felt that this was essential. So upon successful completion of the course, the proprietors chose one of 6 loan products carefully designed to address their particular needs. And as I had said before, this program turned out to be self-sustaining because the interest in the loans we factored in to make sure it paid for the cost of the training. So, as I mentioned, we piloted this school program with 105 schools, and we introduced them in 3 consecutive tranches, each set about 6 months apart. And this allowed us to correct the mistakes we made in earlier tranches. And as you might imagine, there were plenty of mistakes because these were completely uncharted waters. We were often amazed by things we discovered along the way, some of them fantastic, and others a pretty good lesson in what not to do in the next tranche. By the time we had completed 3 tranches, we thought we had the model pretty well down. Our financial partner, Sanapi Arbor Trust, is now in the process of adding 1,200 more of these existing schools into its normal operating structures, proving that the concept of the pilot worked. The second phase of the program we call the Learning Enhancement Tract. Before we even started the training, we were very careful to start building relationships with the government officials. Many people told us, just don't waste your time on this. But I firmly believe it is essential to have the cooperation, even though we did not exactly have the initial support of the government. In my mind, there is no way this program could achieve our goals of inclusion for all children without government support for teachers and teaching and learning materials. In any country, the only providers of teachers and teaching and learning materials are parents, governments, or NGOs and multilateral funders. In the case of these schools, the parents are too poor. The school owners can't afford trained teachers or to buy supplies, and the funders and the governments will not include them. So how then can we possibly achieve education for all if we don't address this gap? It just doesn't make any sense. While we as a foundation or other funders and NGOs can fund interventions in some of the schools for a bit of time, it's clear to us that real learning enhancement must come from the government. The government has to buy in. We have found that most learning interventions are very siloed, disparate, disconnected, and stop once the funding period is over. This is true of USAID, UN programs, and on. In short, they just often fizzle out. But by engaging the government and showing them the improvements in the school, making them aware of the numbers of children enrolled in them, and constantly advocating for subsidies for learning enhancements, we have now been asked to draft a terms of reference leading to a public-private partnership between the government and the school owners. This would be a direct partnership. So we are definitely making very important inroads. We've pointed out that these school owners actually reduce the financial burden on governments and also funders by taking the initiative to build and improve their schools. It's much cheaper to subsidize one of these schools with teaching and learning materials than to build one from scratch and to govern it. Now the government is beginning to see the true advantages. So after 3 years and a lot of work and an investment of over $5 million US, what have we found? We have found that it is indeed possible for a bank to extend credit and expect full repayment as long as there are carefully created modules of training and the cost of those trainings is integrated into the loan terms to ensure the program is self-sustaining and not aid-dependent. We found the training and access to capital led to huge improvements in infrastructure and governance, thereby increasing both enrollment and the number of days in school. We discovered that these previously unconnected school owners started to meet with one another, resulting in alumni associations. And they have realized that they can use a low-cost private school association to incorporate the school management skills that they have been learning and were taught, and they can also lobby their elected officials for inclusion. So after all of this, why really does our work matter? It matters because it demonstrates how philanthropists can leverage risk capital to create market-driven solutions to aid the goal of education for all. It matters because despite the billions of dollars in educational aid that have been expended over the last 6 decades, there are still an estimated 250 million children who do not have basic education. They do not have the foundational skills they need, the ability to simply read, write, or master mathematics, just simple mathematics, to be able to be in a position to train and to develop transferable technical and vocational skills. You can hardly be an electrician or a mechanic or a plumber if you can't read and write and add up. By other estimates, there are still at least 61 million children that are not even enrolled in any kind of school. Other estimates are much higher. Our work matters because clearly the Millennium Development Goal of basic education for all by 2015 will not come anywhere near being met. Report after report is now being published on the failure of this education for all. And Ban Ki-moon, the head of the United Nations, he has just launched a new initiative called Education First, and it was announced this past September. And very likely that will fail too. Why will it fail? It will fail because it's more of the same top-down rhetoric that we've been hearing for years. Pour more aid into governments, pour more aid into NGOs who will implement programs in government schools. Over and over again, the same thing. A whole lot of, this should be done, and this needs to happen, and we must challenge one another, and on and on and on. But where is any useful information that is widespread and widely acknowledged as to how it can be done? There's a lot of philosophy, but not much practicality. Confucius said, When it is obvious that the goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps. Nowhere in these sweeping reports or concept papers prepared by the World Bank, United Nations, and others is any mention made of the necessity to galvanize the efforts of tens of millions of very poor people all over the world who are trying to take education into their own hands, to create and fund schools within their villages and slum communities. There is never a recommendation that we should embrace and empower a bottom-up approach to reach all children. On a side note here, I am not an advocate for the privatization of education. On the contrary, I believe emphatically that education should be free and provided by governments. I also believe that education is a universal human right and find it absolutely appalling to see that the very poorest of us actually do not view it as much of a universal human right as they do a commodity, something they will somehow find the money to pay for. And that they have had to resort to this because of government and funding and policy failures is absolutely shocking. All I am saying is that the action steps need to be adjusted to factor the efforts of the parents and the school owners into the funding and policy equation. Doing all of this seems to be the province of private philanthropy. Philanthropists who are willing to take huge risks and expend a lot of energy to try innovative and new approaches to solving age-old problems. And this can be tough. Many times during the creation of the ITB Rising Schools program, I was really ready to give it all up. But my daughter said, "Mama, if it was easy, somebody would have already done it. Nobody has, so you do it." I'm still working on it, particularly with advocacy for policy change at the highest levels. But I am hopeful that the IDP Rising Schools program will show you that risky innovation can lead to positive development and real progress. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for this terrific speech, dear Irene. It's only been 20 minutes, but in only 20 minutes, you've shared with us both quantity and quality in terms of what you set out to do, what you have so far accomplished, and what you are further aspiring to do. We applaud your accomplishments, but more so, I think, your will, determination, and perseverance. Thank you very much. I would now like to invite Mohammed Abbad Andalusi to share with us his experiences and insights as a key leader in building civil society, as well as his pioneering work in the field of education. Mohammed.
Ms. Gula Sabanji, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to express my warm thanks to Sabanji Foundation and to its president for their kind invitation. Thanks to them, I am very happy today to be here and to share my modest experience in education and to learn from the experienced participants of this seminar. I think that we need to join our effort to work together, to learn from each other, to address the global challenges in education. I love an African proverb who states, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. Concerned by the development of my country, I always had three passions: education, education, and education. Today, I created a number of initiatives, all contributing to the modernization and improvement of education system in Morocco and its link to the job market. The private sector is convinced that the quality of education has to be improved to face the 21st century challenges. In fact, it suffers from the lack of human resource quality necessary to improve its competitiveness. The labor supply does not meet the private sector needs. Education is often based on memorization and does not encourage initiative, imagination, teamwork, and entrepreneurial spirit. As their qualification don't match the requirement of the labor market, in my country, 300,000 graduates ends up unemployed, lacking necessary skills and entrepreneurial spirit. Besides, nearly all graduates aim to be employed and take no initiative to establish their own business, not even on a small scale. Why? In my opinion, first, because teachers in general ignore the word of business and live in some sort of alienation away from any technological and scientific advances because they lack a continuous training. As a result, they are not able to communicate with the student who are faced with a rigid institution which doesn't respond to their societal trends nor reality. Schools management schemes do not generally operate with systematic evaluation, neither analytical assessment of causes behind poor performances. The world of business overlooks the world of education, except for a few charitable donations invested merely in construction. Consequently, students are not well prepared for the labor market. These immense problems have been there for decades, but the government, represented by the Ministry of Education, failed to offer a sustainable structural solution to this issue. This led me to launch an initiative to address this issue through mobilizing the collaboration between businesses sector and the school community to improve our education system. As I was a former banker, I have been working for a bank for 34 years, so I decided to use my connection with the private sector to get it involved in education. The business sector is the first client of the education system, so I think it has to be involved. So the first initiative is a partnership school business called Al Jisr. Al Jisr means bridge, meaning to adopt school by businesses. I don't only lead businesses to give money to school, which can be done by anybody, but I also try to convince them to be more interested in the school management by interacting with school principal, teachers, parents, and students in the context of the school support committee. I am very happy to notice that the Moroccan government introduced management council in the school that we launched in 1999. We need to create a board in school like a board in a company. They all act as a partner who exchange and collaborate to have a better school with better education. The school community and the businesses collaboration is to make aim to make school more capable of providing higher quality of education, leading to change, progress, and development. They are all invited to start by analyzing the school needs. They start by SWOT analysis, based on which the school support committee develop an action plan to respond to this need and start implement it jointly. The aim is to use the expertise and the tool of business sector to improve the education system, ensuring an international standard of school graduates who can compete in global and modernized market. We don't tell business what to do in each school adopted. We tell them just, you are competent, you have experience, so please be innovative. Propose, suggest to the school community some ideas about extracurricular activity, about entrepreneurship education, and so and so. And now we notice that businesses compete in innovation. Some of them, for example, introduce chess in the school. Some of them introduce basketball, music, even training on sailing, and training teachers on communication, on new method of teaching. And they often organize community day in school with all their stuff. So today, I have succeeded in involving hundreds of businesses to their financial and technical contribution. To date, we have adopted nearly 400 schools by businesses, and we hope to reach 500 by 2015. This is the first initiative. But the second initiative, the first is to update the school, and to participate in the management of the school. But the second idea, which I found more interesting, aimed to reduce the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate among Moroccan youth is at a staggering 30%. Job creation is not keeping up with the growing number of young people entering the workforce every year. Yet, youth are not taking advantage of the government program opportunities. For example, in 2009, a government program, Muqawalasi, which being my business, that offer mentoring and loan to 300 desks. We invite youth who have just an idea to come to one of these 300 desks. We accompany them for feasibility study, give them a loan, and with a coach for 1 year, and too many incentives. But this program received only 900 applicants. Their target was 30,000. So the achievement rate, even all this investment, is only 3%. So the reason, in my opinion, is due to the fact that youth are not prepared very early to take initiative. When they are 25 years, it's late. This is why the NGO, Injaz Morocco, that I launched in 2007, commits to cultivating entrepreneurial spirit and ability among youth by scaling up the size and scope of Junior Achievement Program launched in 1919 and implemented today in 120 countries, and in Turkey also. Volunteers from the private sector train students in an effort to reduce the lack of encouragement for entrepreneurship within the education system. The methodology is based on learning by doing. I give you an example because we have a lot of programs on entrepreneurship, on financial literacy, on life skill, but let me give you just an example. about company program with professional mentorship. A class of students, 25 students, agree on a product or service, conduct a feasibility study, elaborate a business plan, sell shares, create a management committee, buy raw material, produce, sell, prepare a financial report at the end of the academic year, and they have to liquid this, the company at the end of the academic year. They are frustrated because they want to continue the adventure, but we tell them we want just to inspire you. Because we train them when they are 17 years old or 18. So they will not have to create a company at this age. And through this experience, students acquire the necessary skills such as communication, teamwork, problem solving, initiative, and are encouraged to use their imagination and adventurous spirit to enter and succeed in entrepreneurship world. Listen to this, according to the survey conducted in Europe, in perhaps 30 or 40 countries, 30% of students who benefit from this training create their own business when they are 25 years. So imagine if we train only 10,000 students a year, we will generate 3,000 small companies in 5 years. So we don't need to invent the wheel. And even the 70% remaining, they succeed in their professional life as they have acquired entrepreneurship spirit and the skill needed by the market. Over the next 5 years, we aim to reach more than 72,000 students, with half of the participants being girls. Through topics like entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and life skills, our program empowers youth with the knowledge and skill they need to start and grow business. The achievement program that we launched have been supported by the 70 largest companies in Morocco, and many other stakeholders wanting to get involved. I give you an example. The Boston Consulting Group has conducted a pro bono project providing us with a recommendation on our strategy and organization, including planning, key performance indicators and processes which will be used by our operation, fundraising, and communication department. I think if we had to pay this study, we would have paid $500,000. Everybody is interested by youth and by empowering youth. This energy speaks to great potential there is for businesses to partner with government and youth to lend their expertise and help promote entrepreneurship as a way of closing the youth unemployment gap. I am faced by the challenge of convincing more and more businesses to support school and to get involved in the school and to mobilize their executives. But a social entrepreneur is never discouraged. You just keep persevering. I will give you an example. The largest conglomerate in Morocco, I tried to convince this conglomerate to get involved in their top managers because they have 1,000 top managers. But they told me since 2008, it's impossible. We are investing $15 billion in our conglomerate. All our top managers are very busy. We ask them to 2 hours a week. But at the end, 1 month ago, the top managers decide to create their association. And they come to us and they said, please, we decided 600 top managers to provide 32 hours in school and university for youth and to implement your program. Do you see the contrast between company who feel that it's impossible and with youth because executive because they love to get involved and because it is win-win. When you have an executive who come into school 2 hours a week and to coach students, he acquire some skills in management, in communication, in training. I have deployed 5 arguments to engage Moroccan business in the work of education. First, I argue the work represents powerful professional development of company staff. Second, it changed the image of businesses. I don't know what is the image of businesses in Turkey, but in Morocco, businesses are seen as greedy predators. Third, it improved the loyalty of the staff because they can become involved in something that they believe in. Fourth, they have and should have an interest in preparing the consumer of tomorrow. And finally, through this involvement, companies are contributing to the stability of the country. The Arab Spring demonstrates that I was not wrong. Economists have always been looking for a shortcut to reduce the gap between developing country and developed country. I am convinced that this shortcut exists. It is a new generation of entrepreneurs. I strongly believe that businesses can create and can contribute to the creation of this new generation of entrepreneurs by stimulating entrepreneurial spirit of youth. 1 or 2 hours a week of involvement and the result is stunning. I always give an example. I came across 20 years ago when I visited a branch of Citibank in New York. The branch manager showed me a card called Balanced Scorecard, which indicates 5 key performance indicators taken into consideration each year for employee evaluation. To my surprise and satisfaction, one of these indicators is the service to the community. So at the end of every year, before we ask the staff, what have you done for your company, we start by asking them, what have you done for your country? So let's develop this voluntarism culture. Let's all remember what President John Fitzgerald Kennedy said, don't ask what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. In order for me to illustrate the importance of the entrepreneurship spirit, let me tell you 2 short testimonials from students. One of the students said, I was on earth contemplating my dream until Injaz is my NGO, gives me the wing to reach them. And another one said, this experience changed the course of my life and gave me a reason to wake up every morning. So we need to create hope. I think if we can't survive without air, if we can't survive without food, if we can't survive without water, we can't survive without hope. As a conclusion, I would like to transmit this message to the business leader attending this seminar. By investing in education, you invest in your future, which will be in the hand of the future generation. Indeed, this rising generation can increase your competitiveness if they are well prepared thanks to your technical and financial contribution. So together, let's reinvent the school. Together, let's build the future. Together, we can change the world. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for this excellent and inspiring speech, dear Mohammed. You started off saying education, education, education, and I think we could feel your passion, passion, passion. Thank you very much. Değerli konuklarımız, şimdi kısa bir ara vereceğiz. Kahve molamız olacak. Kahve molasından sonra Muhammed ve Irene'le bir kısa bir söyleşimiz olacak. Aynı zamanda da sizlerin sorularını alacağız. Tekrar hoş geldiniz seminerimizin söyleşi bölümüne. Well, there's so much to ask about. I wish we had much more time than planned, but we have until about 1 o'clock because of the late start. We're sort of spilling over. Bunu da söylemeyi unuttum, pardon. Saat 1 gibi bitireceğiz, biraz geç başladığımız için. Umarız sizce de uygundur. Okay, well, both of the speeches have been so inspiring, and among many key words and key concepts, there's a few I noted down. Quality, no doubt, sustainability, learning by doing, and practical rather than theoretical applications, methodologies, involvement of stakeholders, and I think we're all aware of the role of feedback and data in education in particular, and when it comes to projects like this. I would actually like to ask you about that in terms of what feedback there's been from parents, from school proprietors, from businesses, companies, in terms of the projects, the IDP Rising Schools and the INJA's work. Irene?
Me? Well, one of the things that we do with this program is that they're extremely careful to collect a lot of data. Ongoing independent research firms collecting data on just about everything. When we start with a school, we do a baseline study. So it's sort of like a census, and we collect information from the proprietors, from community members, from parents, and then 1 year after they get a loan, after they have access to a loan, we conduct exactly the same census. So in terms of the feedback from the parents and the school owners and people in the community, of course it's what they say. So it has to be, rather than quantitative, it's qualitative. And so we do this through focus groups. And we find that the parents are extremely excited by the improvements they see in the school and the fact that their children can attend more days, and also that the proprietors are beginning to put pressure on the government officials to get materials and support for teacher training.
And qualitative data is no doubt as important, if not more important sometimes than quantitative data, especially if we're talking about education. And I think, Mohammed, in your speech, you were referring to several student testimonials. So maybe you can expand on that in terms of what feedback you've been receiving.
First of all, we have many feedback from businesses, from parents, from the world of education. Today, we notice that we don't still need to contact company. They contact us. And they say, we want to get involved. I give you an example. Just 2 weeks ago, I received a call from one company called Vivo Energy. And they said, we want to meet you. And when I meet them, I say, we want you to train 3,000 students, 1,000 students at college level
during 3 years, in total 3,000. What are your needs? I said, I need volunteer. So they provide me with volunteer, about 20 volunteers. And I said, we need money for the pedagogical tools, and I need $150,000. Immediately, they remit the check of $150,000. This is just an example to show, and we have other company with $50,000, $40,000. So money, it's not an issue when we have a good idea, and all company want to get involved. Now the parents. In the beginning, the parents were afraid because their students spent a lot of time managing their junior company. And they were afraid about the impact on their studies. And they come to us. Our children are always on the phone, calling how much they have sold, and I said, please, wait and see. We will wait until the end of the year, and we will see their marks. And they get the best marks, because they learn a lot of things. Now, about the world of education. I am very, very proud and very happy that all Moroccan universities, when they have seen the impact on the student, they have implemented a module called entrepreneurship. And they ask an NGO, it's incredible, this partnership between public-private in education. And they ask an NGO to deliver our company program. So now our volunteers are becoming a professor. So students are very, very happy. So I think all the stakeholders are very happy about this program.
Okay, so you have data coming in from all kinds of activities, and also the results show you that the project is being very successful.
The problem is the scaling up, because when all Moroccan universities ask us to get involved, we can't implement our program in all Moroccan cities. But this is why we invited BCG, Boston Consulting Group, to accompany us, and that's what we are doing now.
Okay. Irene and Mohammed was referring to this as well, but you were referring to and quite
Sorry.
You okay? No, that's all right. To a bottom-up approach. You emphasized this several times. How can governments or agencies foster such an approach, do you believe? I mean, in terms of maybe highlighting several key aspects that you believe are most important?
Well, I think the very first thing is to get the funders and the governments to recognize that the sector really exists. It's also very important to get them to realize just exactly how many children are in these schools, because they are failing to provide schools in these areas. So I think that the way to mostly empower and support this bottom-up approach is to get the people, the governments, the ministries of finance who give the money to the ministries of education to recognize the sector and to look carefully at how they can subsidize it.
Okay, anything to add to that?
Yes.
Ahmed?
Until now, we haven't get $1 from the government. But we haven't asked for support, because we decide to prove our efficiency before to sign an agreement with the government. But today, when they allow us to enter in the school and to enter in the university, it is a beginning, and a good beginning. Now, we will ask them to fund our program if we want to scale up in all Moroccan cities. And I hope that they will respond, because when we intervene in a module, if we don't do it, they have to pay teachers to do it. So I think it will be, I am optimist that they can support us.
Right. And would you say your work has been a model to others in education?
I think that it serves as a model. Nobody has actually done what I'm doing. We've looked very hard to see if anybody else has attempted what we have done here with the IDP Rising Schools program. We haven't been able to find anybody. So it was, a lot of people are now coming to us. Oh, can you bring it to our country? Can you do it here? Can you do it there? Well, when we want to create a model that other people can do, we are not about to expand worldwide and run and manage programs. We need to just keep on proving the concept. We need to keep advocating for policy change. So yes, I do think that we are creating a model that can be replicated. But of course, every country will be a little different.
Sure. And hence the role of training, I suppose, right? Underlined. I mean, in terms of not just replicating it, but taking it further. So the need for training for whoever wants to adopt such a
yes, I mean, with all of our materials, they're extremely detailed, very, very detailed. And so we would license that to another financial institution that wanted to implement the program so that they would have a very clear guide of what we did in Ghana and make their own adjustments. And so we want to do that as a foundation because we have spent a lot of money and a lot of time developing this model, but we would not like other people to use the name of the training model unless we had some kind of license.
Okay. Mohammed?
We have noticed that many other initiatives have been taken. I give you a few. First one that I appreciate a lot is after school for the children of the staff of companies. It's called Sanadi. So they ask company to pay for the children of their staff, and they have prepared some program because as I told you, the quality of education is not good, so students need after school. And so today we have more than 10,000 students benefiting from after school. We have other organizations because many students ask us to accompany them when they decide to create their startup. But we say we can't. We need to focus on education. So other organizations have been created for those who benefit from our company program to continue supporting them. And we have other for the potential dropouts. We have some organization created, and we have also for preschool, for kindergarten, because it is very important. So now everybody is on board.
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks very much. In fact, I do have more questions to ask, but I also want to make sure that our audience gets a chance to ask you questions they may have. İsterseniz şimdi sizlerin sorularını alalım misafirlerimize. Arkadaşlarımız mikrofon dolaştıracaklar. Buyurun, mikrofonu buraya verebilir miyiz? And you've got your... Yeah? Okay.
These?
Yes, I think you're going to need these. Türkçe'de sorabilirsiniz, İngilizce'de nasılsa çeviri imkanımız var.
Okay. I would like to thank, first of all, to the organizers of this seminar and to the invited speakers and attendants of this conference. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. I would like to ask a difficult question. We all know that to achieve quantitative goals is easier than to achieve qualitative qualitative goals. So what I mean is this: the development level of countries is determined by many factors, including geography, tradition, beliefs, ideas, and history. So there can be some traditional resistance against your innovative ideas. So how you can overcome, for example, to educate girls and etc. So you have an idea, you want to apply this, but if you want to apply this in a closed community, you can have lots of threats. And for example, in Germany, their successful story in technical education was copied by some other countries, including the UK and USA, but they couldn't achieve the same results. And they asked, why you educate the workers of your potential rivals? I mean, the workers of small and medium-sized companies. And they said, there's a tradition in our country, and we feel a great pressure on us. So traditions are of vital importance to implement what we want to do in these closed communities. And I believe this is the most difficult part of what you want to do. So could you please give your suggestions or experiences on this issue? Thank you very much.
Shall we clarify it? Sorry, so are you referring to the possible potential resistance?
Yes, traditional resistance, how we can overcome this. Thank you.
So before we start our project, we communicate with association of parents. In each school, we have association of parents. So sometimes we invite all the parents to come to the school and we explain to them what are our objectives. And then when we organize, for example, competition for the best student of the year, we invite the parents to see the performance of their student. So I think when we have arguments, it is very easy to convince them.
Okay, so opportunities to share ideas and discuss things with them, and to make your principles maybe and insights shared and known.
Absolutely.
Anything you'd like to add to the
Well,
issue
of course, our
resistance?
experience is Ghana. That's where we work, and there is not resistance in Ghana at all. In primary school, there's gender parity. However, as the children get older, or where poverty is just making it impossible for the parents to keep all their children in school and not have them working or whatever, we find that the girls are, of course, the first to be sacrificed. But in the school management portion of our training, the afternoon sessions, we talk a lot about how you market your school in the community and the sorts of things that you talk to the community about. So we teach them how to strengthen the parent-teacher associations, and they do their own work. We do not tell them how to do this. They see the community problems, they address it. We give them the tools that they need to think about things and how they might approach their community members. So that's all we can do. It's not our job to get out there. It's the job of the entrepreneur, the school owner.
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions? Başka sorular? 2 tane de alabiliriz, 2 soru alabiliriz arzu ederseniz arka arkaya.
Thank you so much. We were just talking outside with Irene, and I did want to raise it here again. We know about the proliferation of private education in underdeveloped or developing countries, and we know that there are many, many challenges. And one of the risks is that it can mean that governments are almost absolving themselves of the responsibility because there is an alternative that people can reach at a low cost. I mean, I saw this firsthand in Pakistan. I was absolutely shocked to see that almost 50% of the education in the country was actually private education. And the pictures were no different from the ones that you showed. My concern here is that although, and both of you are representing private, the private sector, whether it be through philanthropy or through businesses, becoming more a part of the conversation on education. Does this mean that we're also not expecting as much of the government? Is this a result of government failure? And how can we actually work to ensure that they are pulling their weight as well? Because the private education movement at the moment, there are very few examples, unfortunately, of where they're actually able to produce quality as well as quantity. So my concern is that we're going to have a whole rash of privately funded, small entrepreneurial movements, but the learning outcomes are really not going to be that much different from what you would get in the government schools. But because people have such a poor alternative, they'd rather send their children somewhere than nowhere. So, sorry, it's a bit of a loaded question, but I think that the presenters
So you're
have got
basically
it.
asking about the where
Well,
does
two
the role
things.
of the
One,
government fit
what is the
within
role
all
of
this
the government
picture?
in
Is it all
this?
going to have to be private and privatized?
Yes, and two, it's really about the quality of education in all this. I know that Irene is advocating for the subsidization of these private entities, but here, what could be the interplay between us? Because if you're subsidizing the private sector, then what does that leave for your own public sector, and how is this going to work out? I'm a little bit confused. Thank you.
Well, you know, here's the thing. This is where a lot of people are asking these questions, because what we're doing is really different. People like the old traditional ways of funding education. Let's fund NGOs that give money to the government. Let us, the corporations, you know, curry the favor of the government. Let us do this. It's the same stuff. I am not arguing for privatization of education. I am arguing that the government system and the present policies are failing to include all children. If you don't look at this sector, what is the point of Ban Ki-moon standing up and UNESCO and this one saying, we have to have education for all. We have to make more of an effort. We are falling far short of our goals. So I think that what you have to do here is to encourage the governments and the policymakers and the funders to have more accountability, to have more transparency. What are they doing with all of these billions of dollars in educational aid? So the quality of education is not being addressed. The reality is that no matter what you do and no matter what you say and no matter what the ideals are, there's a giant proliferation of these schools. In Ghana, in a 2-year period, these types of schools grew by 26%. The government schools for the same age group grew by 9%. It shouldn't be like that. But the reality is, it is like that. So what are you going to do? You're not saying, okay, the government, how does this interplay? And, you know, how can you get them to support it? You do it through advocacy, standing up in places like this and trying to convince people to start thinking in a different way.
Thanks a lot, Irene. Mohamed, would you like to add anything to that in terms
just
of...
a few comments. First of all, we don't deal with the private school. Even they ask us to implement our program, and they are willing to pay, and to pay much money.
Yes, you
But
mentioned
we
that.
see we need to focus on public school first. The second thing, the question is not a question of money. In my country, 27% of the budget is allocated to education. So we have created one council of experts to look all around the world about the best practice and to see how we can improve the quality of education. And the first recommendation, they create what we call National Charter of Education. And the first recommendation is the opening the school on its environment. So today, in my opinion, the problem is the governance of the school. Often in the school, we have as principal a former teacher. So it's not the same profile. We can't have a teacher as a principal. So with the involvement of the private sector, we improve the management of the school.
Okay, thanks a lot. Başka sorularımız var mı?
Ben almak istiyorum.
Evet.
Merhaba, ismim Semra Çetinkaya. Türkiye Omurilik Felçleri Derneği Yönetim Kurulu üyesiyim.
Sorry.
Merhaba, ismim Semra Çetinkaya. Türkiye Omurilik Felçleri Derneği Yönetim Kurulu üyesiyim. Aynı zamanda ben bir trafik kazası ve yanlış ikramından dolayı omurilik felçlisi oldum ve tekerlekli sandalye kullanıyorum. Kendim bir iş kadınıydım, sağlıklıydım, gençtim. Engelli insanın neler yaşadığını hiç bilmezdim. Neden sokaklara çıkamadıklarını hiç bilmezdim, düşünmezdim. Ne zaman oturdum, ondan sonra fark ettim ki niye insanlar eğitimde yok, istihdamda yok, sosyal yaşamda yok. Bunun için de büyük çabamız var, birçok çalışmalar içindeyiz. Eğitim ve hayırseverlik başlığında bize aslında beyefendinin biraz önce söylediği gibi köprü vazifesi görüyoruz. Çünkü birçok okula giden engelli üyelerimiz var. Okulların erişebilirliği ve ulaşabilirliği konusunda çok fazla sıkıntı yaşadıkları için biz devreye giriyoruz. Daha etkili oluyor. Çünkü biz bu olayı yaşıyoruz. Ve zaten derneğimizin bünyesinde bu konuda bu projelerle ilgili gönüllülük adına hizmet veren ekibimiz de var. Hemen bize bildirdikleri okula gidiyoruz, tespit yapıyoruz, bir proje çiziyoruz. Biz bunu gönüllü olarak yapıyoruz. Tabii daha sonra kaynak bulmakta çok büyük zorluk yaşıyoruz. Maalesef hala milletim ilçelerde ya da bakanlığa da bazen ulaştığımız yerler oluyor. Sıkıntı yaşadığımız için bu iyileştirmeyi yapamadığımız zamanlar olabiliyor. Rampa ve engel tuvaleti çok önemli. Üst katlara çıkmak çok önemli çocuklar için. Burada hayırseverler devreye giriyor. Kendi çevremizden birçok hayırseverimiz, birçok okulumuzu iyileştirmesini sağladı. Ama o kadar büyük sıkıntı var ki hala. Bu konuda belki sizin projelerinizde de bizim ülkemizde nasıl uyarlanır bilmiyorum engeller için ama bu konuda belki sizin düşüncelerinizi almak istiyorum. Teşekkür ederim.
Any comments?
Yes, I would like to speak about one organization in Morocco. One woman who became paralyzed decided to do something for all paralyzed. So she did what the government has not succeeded to do. Please look at in Google AMH, Amicale des Handicapés. And they created a wonderful hospital. And this hospital is all the staff, it is managed by handicap. And they don't only, this is not only an hospital, but they produce all the orthopedist tools, and they accompany paralyzed until they find job. So as I told before, we know we need to share our experience. And this woman, she has no problem to find for the funding. For example, she's the first woman in Morocco which launched in France she would call Téléthon. It's TV just to raise money and commitment for people during one full day, and we called for volunteer. And she succeeded in one day, perhaps $1 or $2 million. So the problem is not issue. The problem, first, we have to be passionate. And I think when we are passionate, we become contagious. We transmit our passion. I would like to tell you just about a short story. I launched a few years ago a project to collect 200,000 used computers so as to refurbish them, and those who are obsolete, to recycle them, because we have not solution for this problem. So we protect environment, and all the computers refurbished, we give them to the school. And we need a vein because companies tell us we have 1,000 to give you a computer, but you need to come and to take them. So I need a vein, and they took an appointment with a company who sell vein, and just for a discount. When I met the CEO, I start with enthusiasm, with passion, to speak about my work, and at the end he listened to me, and at the end I said, please, I need a vein and I need a discount. He stood up and he told me, please follow me. He took me to the showroom. I noticed 5 different sizes of vein, and he told me, choose one, is for free. So you see, when we are passionate, everything is, but we need also, passion is not enough. We need a credibility. We need to be credibility. We need to have innovative idea, to communicate on this idea. But I think impossible is not
impossible.
It is not impossible.
Okay. We've got a question back there. Buyurun.
Çok doğru söylüyorsunuz. Sanırım Fas'taki bayanın ben internet sayfasından muhakkak ulaşacağım. Belki birlikte çalışmalarımız olabilecek. Ülkemizde maalesef bazı şeyler için daha çok erken. Mesela bir omurilik felsi olduktan sonra bir kişinin tekrar yeni yaşama adapte edilebilmesi için bir rehabilitasyon görmesi gerekiyor. Ve maalesef ülkemizde bu rehabilitasyon merkezi hala yok. Biz de bir kampanya başlattık. Ülkemizin genelinde 1 milyon üye hedefimiz. Bu üyelik aidatıyla her ay ayda 2 TL olmak üzere toplam 12 ayda 24 TL ödeyerek gönüllü üyemiz olup 1 milyon hedefimizdeki üye ulaştıktan sonra bu parayla da bir rehabilitasyon merkezi kurmak amacımız. İnşallah biz de diğer projelerde gibi burada başarılı oluruz. Teşekkür ederim.
İnşallah. Teşekkür ederiz. Buyurun. Sanırım son sorulardan birisi olacak.
Ben konuklarımıza hoş geldiniz demek istiyorum İstanbul'a. Batuhan Aydagül, Eğitim Reformu Girişimi. Demin Ayla ile Aylin arasındaki konuşmaya bir küçük ekleme yapmak istiyorum öncelikle. Aylin'e teşekkür ederim konuşmasının sonunda ve demin özelleştirmeye bir çözüm olarak değil ama katkı yapabilecek bir araç olarak baktığını söyledi. Bu çok önemli. Türkiye'de bugün itibariyle bence Milli Eğitim Bakanlığı'nın örneğin öğretmen eğitimi konusunda artı değer üretemeyeceğini bizim de kabul etmemiz gerekiyor. Ama bu onlara kızıp küsmeyi değil, özel sektörün, sivil toplumun onlarla ortak olarak yaratıcı, yenilikçi gücünü bir araya getirmesiyle ve beraber bir şey yapmaya çalışmasıyla olacak. Onun için belki ortaklıklar daha önemli. Sayın Sabancı'nın da konuşmasında bahsettiği çok ortaklı işbirlikleri önemli. Belki bu yenilikçilik fırsatların yanında muhakkak ortaklıklar da olmalı. Bir sorum da Sayın Andalusi'ye. Türkiye'de de özel sektör özellikle meslek eğitimi alanında çok yakın çalışıyor veya giderek yakın çalışmaya çalışıyor. Ancak büyük şirketlerin bunu becerebildiğini görüyoruz. Halbuki Türkiye'de işverenlerin çoğu küçük ve orta ölçekli şirketler. Ve eğer küçük ve orta ölçekli şirketlerin bu işe sahip çıkmasını, okullarla beraber bir araya gelmesini sağlayamazsak da her zaman çok sayılı öğrenciye ulaşmış olacağız. Kendi ülkenizde, kendi projenizde çalıştığınız şirketlerle ilgili bu açıdan bir bakarsanız, yani bunu nasıl daha yaygınlaştırabilirdiniz elinizde imkanlar olsaydı, özellikle de küçük ve orta ölçekli işletmelere. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Teşekkürler. Ahmet?
First of all, when I met small and medium business, I don't ask for money. I ask for involvement. I ask them to provide some 1 hour or 2 hours a week to train students, because all these leaders, they can share their experience with youth, and they love it. Believe me, they love it. Even if they haven't many executives, they can mobilize 1 or 2 or 3. It's enough. If we can get all
the SME. I have also decided to collaborate with association called of businesses, and this association is like in French MEDEF, and so today in many regions my office is in the office of this association. So we work with small and medium business association, and we invite them to get involved, their members, and they do. And small business and medium business, and I think I can tell you that they are more involved than large company.
Okay. Batuhan, Irene için de ayrıca bir sorunuz var mıydı? Peki. Son bir soru alabiliriz. Buyurun.
Ben 20 yıllık bir vakıfta görevliyim. Muhasebecimiz ve güvenlik elemanından sonra 3. erkeğim. Yaklaşık 300 gönüllü ya da görevli var. Konuklarımıza sormak istiyorum. Onların çalıştıkları vakıflarda veya ilişkide oldukları vakıflarda bu oran nasıl acaba? Türkiye'ye has bir özellik mi bu?
Bu oran derken erkek, bayan anlamında.
Bakınız 3 kişiyiz dedim. Yaklaşık
evet.
300 kişi
Peki.
içerisinde.
Peki.
300 kişi içerisinde 3 erkek.
Okay. Irene?
Well, our organization is quite small, so I would say that if you go to a conference, if you go to any conference that is to do with philanthropy, you will find about 90% of the people in the room are women. By and large, men are not attracted to philanthropy. And I go to a lot of conferences in a lot of countries, and it's always the same. It's mostly women. So therefore, that stands to reason that most foundations are going to be staffed by more women than they are going to be staffed by men. So at least by my calculation and deduction, this is probably why. But I think what's very interesting is to know, who are you partnered with? Who is a foundation partnered with? We have partnered with banks. They're all men. So I suppose it balances out, and you can say it's probably 50-50, men and women. I think that's the only way I can look at it.
Okay, thank you, Irene. Mohammed?
I would like to tell you that we have more female than male as volunteer. What is our approach? All what we ask businesses to do is to organize a meeting for us, half an hour. That's all what we ask them to do with their staff, so as we present our project. But when we present our project, we have some students with us and some volunteers to testimony. And at the end of this presentation, I asked them who want to be volunteer. And in general, 75% female. And I told you something else. I see, in general, we prefer to have volunteers coming from our partner. But we have some female, some ladies who contact us. We want to get involved. Our company is not partnering with you, but we want as individual to participate. And I have one excellent example. She was very passionate, and at the end, she succeeded to get her company member of our board.
Peki, eğitim için hayırseverlik, yeni çözümler seminerimizde bizlerle olduğunuz için hepinize çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Tabii ki özel teşekkürlerimiz konuklarımız Irene Pritzker ve Mohammed Abad Andalusi'ye. Sizlere de tekrar çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Thank you very much indeed for your inspiring speeches and for being with us today. Teşekkür ederiz.